From Boston, Crockett's Victory Garden.
Welcome to Crockett's Victory Garden. I'm Jim Crockett, and I must tell you that this time of the year is a real pleasure in a garden, especially if you're growing biennials. For example, this is a biennial foxglove. We sowed the seeds last June, and here they are this June in full blossom. Now, as a biennial, this plant will have to be replanted again year after year so that we will have flowers in subsequent seasons. However, the foxglove's a little unique in that it often drops a lot of its own seeds. Once you have them in the garden, chances are you'll have some self-sown seedlings. Well, today, speaking of seedlings, we're going to put in a nursery row, a nursery seed bed, in which we're going to prepare for fall by planting the seeds of Brussels sprouts, some late cabbage, some cauliflower, some kale, a number of things that we will be harvesting in the fall. And then in a few weeks from now, we are going to sow seeds of foxgloves and sweet williams and other plants which will be blossoming in this garden a year from now. But I'd like to have you look at this garden just for a moment and see what we have in blossom. For example, down here the pansies are still going. You know, the secret on pansies is once a flower has faded like this, you take off the flower head because you don't want it to spend its energy making seeds. Then next to it is a rather dainty version of the English daisy. Very, very small. There are varieties with blossoms as much as 2 to 3 inches across. The name of one of those types is called monstrosa, and in a sense they do look a little bit gross. Right behind it you must see the Canterbury bells. This is called Campanula medium. This is a biennial. It comes in this lovely shade of purple as well as lighter shades. Then over in the background you see the white ones. Down in the foreground we have bleeding heart. This is a type of western bleeding heart. A variety happens to be called bountiful, will blossom most of the summer and does very, very beautifully. Then down next to that we have the very first of our thread leaf coreopsis coming into blossom with that bright yellow flower next to the Chinese delphinium with that rich blue. This is a sort of a classic combination of colors, and the Chinese delphinium never gets much over 2 feet or 18 inches tall. Down in front of that is another type of campanula. Instead of being the Canterbury bell, this is called the Carpathian harebell. You might like to see the name on that one. The Carpathian harebell. The foliage is low to the ground. It's a nice rock garden plant. Does beautifully in the border of a garden. I want to switch, right down below here, I want to show you one more flower. The perennial type of gaillardia, or blanket flower. Again, you might like to see the name of that. The gaillardia, or blanket flower. This will blossom most of the summer. Besides, the typical color is the red and yellow combination, but there are some that are pure yellow and others that are rather burgundy red in color. Very handsome little plant that will go on. And then in front of that lovely silver mound artemisia. Well, now let's go over here. I'm going to talk about our annual flowers, but I want to talk next about thinning some carrots. Now, our carrots, as you can see, we have some of different sizes. This particular place represents a little miss in our seedlings, and so when they missed, we simply planted a few others. Now, what I'm going to do is to thin these so that they'll stand approximately 1 inch apart. And sometimes you just hate to do this, but I know as my mother and dad used to say, this is for your own good. And so just what we do, we thin them out so they stand approximately 1 inch apart. Then they'll grow up to be plants like this, and we'll have beautiful straight carrots from them. I want to continue down this border, and this border is composed of annuals rather than perennials. Now, I talked to you about the blanket flower on the other side, the orange and yellow. This is another type of blanket flower in the annual. Again, this one is a variety called Gaiety, and it has almost a globular flower head. Very handsome. You notice that this one is going to be predominantly on the red shades. Many shades of red and yellow together. Oh, let's see, another one that you should see right now, just beginning to pop out, is the Lobelia Crystal Palace. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when I set this out, there were just 1 or 2 flowers. Already it's beginning to come in this deep, deep purple blue. But it will continue all summer long. Another thing I want to tell you about, we spoke about once before, when I set out these snapdragons, I spoke about the fact that I had pinched the tip out of the seedlings to make several stalks. Well, you couldn't see them at that time, but now you see this plant has 4 flower stalks coming. This one has about 6 of them coming. This one has at least 6 or 7 coming. You can see how many flowers we're going to get. What's more, when they're through flowering, we will cut them off and we'll be right back again to another whole set of flowers. One I would like you to see way down front here is called the annual chrysanthemum. Now, you've seen the ordinary chrysanthemum, but isn't that a beautiful one? That's a variety, a type called rainbow. I like it, the concentric rings of color. Many different shades in here, but a very extraordinary plant. Well, now let's go over to our nursery bed. And this nursery bed is nothing more than our cold frame we used earlier this spring. We've dug the soil up. Now, we have not added nourishment to the soil because young seedlings don't need a rich soil. They just need a soft soil to get started. Well, let's see what we could plant in here. Now, the first one I think we'll put in is a broccoli called Premium Crop. Now, this will be a fall broccoli. And there's no secret in planting these except don't sow them too thickly. That's the only thing to do, because if you have to leave these little seedlings in the row for an extra week just because you can't get to them or because it gets rainy, then they won't overcrowd themselves. Get a few more out of here, like that. Now, that's sufficient. Now, instead of covering these over with soil, I have here some vermiculite. Now, the reason I'm using this is because the soil is a little wet. The vermiculite will not only show up on the camera, but it will absorb moisture. It is sterile. The seedlings will come through it without any trouble at all. And when it comes time to dig these seedlings and transplant them in the garden, we will have probably 100% stand of seedlings. Well, let's see. In the row next to that, let's plant some cabbage. A good variety called Stonehead. Stonehead, a good hard-headed cabbage that is a joy to use in the kitchen. Again, this is simply a matter of sowing the seeds in here, and unless you want a whole field of cabbages, just be a little sparing. Now, we put the seeds in roughly a ½ inch deep. Now, I don't want, probably for this garden, more than a dozen of these cabbages, so I don't plant more than 25 seeds or so, because almost all of them will come up. We'll give this vermiculite a drink of water afterwards, and the seeds will be up and growing inside of 4 or 5 days. All right, that gives you an idea. Eventually we'll sow the seeds of our biennials in here. We'll sow our pansy seeds, our sweet williams, the Canterbury bells, foxgloves, things of that nature. Now, it was just a week ago that you saw me working on a program in England, talking with my friend Peter Seabrook. And at that time, he was demonstrating the use of a grow bag containing compost and nutrients. Well, we imported some of these bags and have some right here before you, and we're going to try them under American conditions. We're not at all convinced that American conditions are the same as English ones, but you know, by doing right before your eyes, you will know whether this is a good system or not. All right, this has compost and nutrients built in. It has the advantage that it is not connected to the soil itself underneath. You see, it's just lying here. This could just as easily lie on a patio, on a terrace, on the 10th floor balcony of a condominium. It would make no difference whatsoever as far as the plants are concerned, because all of their roots are going to be confined in the bag. So, if you remember, what Peter Seabrook did was to just take out his knife and cut some squares in here to set the plants into. Just a little square like that. Beautiful looking material. So we're going to put in 3 tomato plants. I don't know how well I can do this by eye, but we're going to put 3 tomato plants in here, and according to the British system, we should get about 60 pounds of tomatoes. And if that isn't a pretty healthy return on your money, I don't know what is. So you notice that I leave a little strip between, because this, you see, acts as a sort of a support, a belt, you might say, to keep the bag from spreading wide open. Now, we've picked up some seedlings. These are not our own. We had planted all of ours in the garden. This is a variety called Jet Star. You can see what this one is. This is a mid-season tomato. We're simply going to set the tomato in it like that, and that's the whole procedure. And now we have wires and strings. We'll slip the little plant around here, and we will pinch these to hold them to a single stem. Now, could you imagine anything any easier than that for planting tomatoes? Now we can slip another one right over in here. You notice this material is so soft that you don't even need a trowel to handle it. Push them in like this. Now, of course, these are going to have to be watered. There's no rainwater going to get through there except through the top, which is not very substantial. Now, we expect that we'll water them during the summertime, but I should say that when you're thinking about watering, there is the opportunity of watering them too much. And if you do that, of course, you'd have a sort of a bathtub effect of water. So if you go down with your knife roughly a ½ inch above the bottom of the bag and just make a few slits, just like that, along on the bottom. Now, that will take care of any excess water. And I'll do a few over here, because no plant except a water lily or something of that nature would stand growing in pure water. Well, now we're going to plant the rest of these, and we'll come back all summer long, and you'll check them out and see how well they really do. But while we're on to the subject of tomatoes, let's check some of these tomatoes that we have growing right here. You notice that, to review for you just a minute, we're growing our tomatoes in cages. We put some plastic around the bottom of the cages simply because of the wind protection and the fact that this will act as a sort of a heat trap. And I can guarantee you it's working. Look at this variety. This again is a Presto. This is a mid-season tomato. Just look at the fruit that has already set on that little plant. Isn't that beautiful? And then on the blossom clusters, more fruit coming over here. All right, I'm going to give you another little trick on this. I'll put this plastic over, and on those cold windy days, and this is one of them. Today our temperature is somewhere not much above 50. It's going down, they say tonight, into the 40s. Tomatoes like warm temperatures. If you have your tomatoes in a situation like this, at dusk, nightfall, just take a garbage bag, a plastic bag like this, make a little tent, and you can hold that heat right in there overnight. Now, for goodness sakes, remember to take it off in the morning, or you'll have stewed tomatoes before they even get ripe. Next thing we're going to do is make another planting of some beets and carrots. And we've prepared the soil over here. I guess maybe the first thing that you'd like to notice is that I have this arranged in double rows. I have, first it's going to be carrots. This is a variety, I believe this one is called Nantes, a carrot named Nantes. This is a mid-length carrot, a good bright orange one. The carrot seeds this time of year can go in about a ½ inch deep, but they have, even in this kind of warm weather, the tendency to stay dormant for about 3 weeks. Well, I know what happens to the weeds in my garden in 3 weeks. We get so many of them that I wouldn't know where exactly the carrots were growing. So what I do is to put in some radish seeds with them. The radishes will be up in 4 or 5 days. I can hold right down between the rows. Then we'll have some radishes to pick too, providing the maggots don't get them, because I am not using any insecticide to take care of them. All these are going to do, these will be a little sacrifice crop of radishes, but they will mark where the carrots are going. Just like that. We cover those up about a ½ inch deep, like so. Pat them down. Now, if the soil is at all dry, it's a very good idea to give them a good drink of water. And remember that you must keep that soil moist during the growing period, otherwise you're not going to have success. You'll have failure, because they are extremely tender at this early stage in the game. Now, if we have a moment here, we'll go down and plant a few beets. Now, I'm going to go down about halfway, and we will have here two half rows of beets and 2 half rows of carrots. This is a hybrid beet named Pacemaker 2. We've grown this on other seasons and been very, very pleased with it. Beet seeds, you know what they look like. They like so. They're not very promising as you look at them, but believe me, this is what will make the beets come up. We'll sow these in not too thickly. Don't like to throw seeds away, but we will have to thin them once they come out of the ground. I'm going to put them in about a ½ inch deep. At this time of year, you know, you can go a little bit deeper than you can in the early spring. Well, I think that should be fine. Again, ordinary soil. Pull them together like so. Pat them down, and they're off and growing. Now, I have to, after I do these beets, I have kind of a fun crop to handle for you. And that is the bearded iris, sometimes called the German iris. And if you remember, it has this lovely flower in early spring, the true fleur-de-lis shape of blossom. Comes in predominantly in shades of blue and purple, but also white, pink, yellow, tan, salmon, many, many shades. Now, this was the old flower bud, and this is the remains of a flower. Now, this is an old clump that was brought in this morning from some suburban garden. It is typical of what happens to iris, which have not been divided very frequently. I think we're going to find a great mass of roots. And finally get the witchgrass and other things pulled out of here. But a plant like this has great promise. There's no reason to throw such a plant away. One thing that you should know about the iris is these roots, which you're now looking at, die when the plant is through flowering, and then in about 6 weeks later send out a whole new bunch of roots. The big rhizome in the middle does not die. It lives on and increases in size from year to year. But if you know that there is a period in which these plants are completely dormant, that is right after blossoming, then you have the trick on when to divide the iris for the best effect. Now let's finally getting this thing down. Matter of fact, I used to work in a nursery that just specialized on iris. And sometimes we just take these old dead roots like this and just cut them off because they're perfectly dead at this stage. We will take out this center crown right in here because that's the flowering stalk and that won't grow anymore. We'll take these other leaves just to make a little, for the fact that they have lost all their roots, kind of cut these back into a fan-shaped arrangement, like so. And we have now a perfectly great division, and I believe that this division is large enough that it will blossom next year. Now, I don't know if you can see very, very close, but the new roots are just beginning to come right here. This means that this is absolutely the perfect time to move them. And when you set them out, use some bone meal in the soil that builds up strong roots. Remember that iris like lime. Mix those together a little bit. And the secret on growing bearded iris has to be this one thing. I'll turn it around this way so you can see it. That rhizome, that thickened root, should lie right on the surface of the soil so that you see the top part of it sticking up above the soil. If you do that, you know that your iris is going to grow. Now we're going on into the greenhouse in a minute and look at some plants in there. But I want to tell you that the bearded iris comes not only in this tall form, which is 24 to 30 inches tall, comes in an intermediate form about 18 inches, and also comes in a dwarf form not over 6 inches tall. Well, let's look in the greenhouse. And the plant that I want to talk to you about today is called the spider lily. Well, it has other names besides spider lily. It's sometimes called a basket flower, or sometimes called a Peruvian daffodil. Maybe I can get this down a little bit where you can see the blossom a little more closely. Extremely fragrant. It's sometimes sold under the name of Hymenocalis narcissus flora, which means like a daffodil. Outdoors it will grow in the south and in the southwest, but in the rest of the country it can be grown in the summertime, dug in the fall, or grown as a houseplant year-round. Because a lot of people go to Arizona in the wintertime and expect to find cacti in blossom, I just want to make the point that most cacti blossom in the spring and summertime and not in winter. This one is one called the plaid cactus. The blossom is just beginning to open up. A very large flower for such a small plant. This is a glory of Texas. It's going by a little bit, but these are a different kind of thorns. And this one is called the powder puff cactus. And if you could look very closely on those thorns, you see that every one of them has a hook. You could actually pick the plant up like this by the thorns and let go of it again without it sticking you. All right, today I'm in my plant clinic. I have a very bedraggled looking plant called the strawberry geranium. It's not a strawberry and it's not a geranium. Sometimes called the strawberry begonia, and it's not a begonia. Another name is mother of thousands or a roving sailor. Now, this plant is called the strawberry begonia because it does send out these long runners with plants on them, just like this. Now, the botanical name is Saxifraga, and it means from two Latin words, meaning the saxa meaning stone or rock, and the other word to break it. So these can be taken off just like this and put in a little pot of soil, and you can have so many of them. You talk about mother of thousands, you can have them. Already this one wants to continue right on growing with the little babies off on the sides. Then the mother plant, this one has been badly treated, but the mother plant can be divided and we can have some other very, very nice ones. Now, to grow this mother of thousands successfully, you should have light shade. It likes cool nights. As a matter of fact, in parts of the country it can grow out of doors, 40 to 50 at night, 65 to 70 in the daytime. Any potting soil, feed it about once a month, and keep the soil, allow it to get nearly dry between waterings. Questions today. My calceolaria plant not only doesn't look too good, but it's not blooming. I picked the faded flowers when they were new. Can you give me any information? This is from Hicksville, New York. I have information. When it goes by, it's an annual. You save the label, you save the pot, you throw the plant away, and that's the end of it. Well, they say that's all the time we have this week. Next week, we're going to a suburban rose garden. We talk about rose care and rose spraying and how to pick them. We're going to have a garden of annuals for color and for cutting. And I think many gardeners miss out on the chance of having a good cutting garden, something where you can go out any day of the summer and pick a lovely bouquet. Then we're going to check on the herb garden that we had planted here earlier this spring, and we're going to have a sick tree, and I'm going to try to doctor that. I'm Jim Crockett in Crockett's Victory Garden, and I hope you enjoy the program every week.